What's going on YouTube? So today I wanted to do my top 25 heading into week 11 of the 2015 college football season. It's hard to believe it's already week 11. But, yeah, I wanted to go ahead and get it going. So, another good weekend in college football. Honestly, one of the most entertaining for me so far, if not the most entertaining. And honestly, this is probably the toughest 5 outside I've done all year. Most of the time, it's pretty easy. It gets harder and harder as the weeks go on, just because, you know who's good, you know who's not. Teams start losing to other teams that are knocked out of the top 25, and you can't really say much about them anymore. Things just get more confusing for the 5 outside, because when it's early in the season, you got a bunch of undefeated teams. Speculation's rampant. You don't really know what to pick. So go ahead and start with my number 5, and that's Georgia. And that was just kind of picked out of pure elimination. So I don't really want to put Georgia in my 5 outside just yet, just because of some of the teams they've lost to and by how much they've lost to them in the last couple weeks. Lost to Tennessee. Then, yes, they did beat Kentucky last week, but beating Kentucky by 24 is no big feat after being beat by Tennessee by, 31. Like I said, they've been beat by Tennessee. I believe they were beat by, they were beat by Florida pretty bad, 27-3 also. So, I think they're going to keep on winning and be able to salvage something out of this season. Losing Nick Chubb really did hurt them. So, move on to number 4, and I'd say, honestly, this is one of my better sleepers for the rest of the year. This is just a team that's been beating teams sideways, and that's Bowling Green. So, Bowling Green, I believe it was Ohio that they just shellacked, 62-10 or something like that. And I really believe that Bowling Green is one of the better teams outside of the Power 5 right now. This might be one of the more dangerous teams, especially in the MAC. Probably going to go to the MAC championship. I don't know if they're going to play Toledo or Western Michigan. Either way, it's going to be a tough one for whatever team comes out of the West. Yeah, 62-24. And they have Matt Johnson, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Also one of the more underrated. He was kind of talked about at the beginning of the season, but then faded off after that. He's just been putting up insane numbers, along with the entire offense. Ever since losing to Memphis, granted a good Memphis team, kind of exposed last week, but still, 44-41. They've been just destroying teams. And all right, so move on to my next one, which is Oregon, and this is just a team that I think is getting on the right track. I believe who were they able to beat last week? I believe it was Arizona State. Anyway, so they were able to beat who I believe was Arizona State, and not a huge victory this year considering how good Arizona State was supposed to be. I really thought, around week 6, week 7 that Arizona State was really going to be able to put it together, and they really never were. I believe they've lost something like 3 straight. Oh no, they didn't lose, or they beat. Oh my god, yeah. They beat Cal. So it was 44-28. Cal's kind of fallen off since the loss to Utah. I believe they've either lost 4 of the last 5 or they've lost 4 straight. Either way, not doing so hot of late. Oregon is actually, I like Oregon moving forward. They're a dangerous team. They do play Stanford this weekend. And you know what? I think that is kind of a trap game for Stanford, a game that Stanford cannot overlook because Oregon is really getting on the right track. Granted, I believe it is a home game for Stanford. Yeah, so they get the advantage there. I'd say if it was an Autzen, then it would be a tough game for Stanford. But an Oregon team that's starting to put it together a little bit, a defense that's I think getting a little bit more confidence. Vernon Adams is playing a little bit better too now. So dangerous Oregon team you got to watch out for. Anyway, move on to my second one, Northwestern. Not much to say. I'm not big on Northwestern after that loss to Iowa. I just don't believe that they're consistent enough to even be a top 25 team right now. They do have some impressive victories, but I don't know. I just don't see them having any relevancy to the rest of the season. They have been able to beat some decent middle tier teams in the Big Ten. They did this. They didn't cover the spread, but they got it exactly against a decent Penn State team. But I don't think they're good enough to be in the top 25 yet. So my last one is BYU, and BYU came entirely too close to losing to San Jose State. but I do think that they're still one of the best teams just outside the top 25. So moving to my top 25, at 25 I've got USC. So I think USC is as talented, or USC has as much talent still as any team in the country. Still a matter of them putting it together. If USC plays like this the rest of the season, Arizona did come out with a pretty spirited fight against USC, taking the lead. I believe 14-0 early, but USC was able to fight back and win 37-30. Cody Kessler got banged around a little bit. Don't know what exactly happened to Juju Smith-Schuster, but Ronald Jones looked really good out of the backfield. And the running game looks like it's coming together a little bit. The defense looked all right, not great. I'm pretty sure Amon Marshall's been having a large amount of trouble this year, covering some of the better wide receivers in the Pac-12, but I guess that's what Adoree Jackson's there for. Adoree Jackson somewhat quiet last week, at least for the part that I watched, and I just feel like USC right now, I believe they're on a 3-game winning streak, and they could actually be a threat in the Pac-12 South. They still have a chance to win the Pac-12. So move on to number 24, Memphis. So Memphis took a big hit last week. I did actually finally, my upset of the week was right. I think I'm like 2 for, it's either like 2 or 3 for 10 so far, my upsets of the week, but actually got it right last week. Memphis just didn't look very good. They just looked outmatched by Navy. They didn't really look like they really prepared for the game. Anyway, move on to number 23, Wisconsin. So, Wisconsin's losses aren't looking so bad anymore. At least in my rankings, and I think in every rankings there are right now, their losses are to 2 top 10, if not top 8 teams, Iowa and Alabama. And, they were extremely close to Iowa. I think no one has really come closer to beating Iowa this year, maybe besides Pitt. And, I think that they could have a solid finish to the season, maybe be a 2 or 3 loss team this year, and actually finish inside the top 20. So move on to number 22, Temple. I still think Temple's a good team. Their only loss is to in my opinion, a top 5 team. Very close game. They're still one of the better, if not the best, non-Power 5 team. So not much to say about them. Pretty good week, but I just think they got to keep it rolling and see if they can stay alive in the AAC. Move on to number 21, Mississippi State. So I have firm belief in Mississippi State that they could be a top 15 team in the country. I do believe that they could be a little bit of I'm saying a little bit of a threat to Alabama this week. I think it could be an entertaining game. It could be a 5 or 6 point game. I think that Alabama's going to be coming off a little bit of a high against LSU, and Mississippi State might be able to catch them off guard in Starkville. Dak Prescott's a quarterback that can put the team on his back, do good when he has to. And, while Mississippi State's 2 losses right now aren't looking great, especially that A&M loss now, but still, they've been on a roll the last couple weeks, and I do still believe they're one of the best teams in the SEC West. So move on to number 20, Navy. So I've had way too much confidence in Navy all season, and finally they proved it right for me. I think that Navy had a really favorable schedule, a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Keenan Reynolds, I still think, is one of the best running quarterbacks in the country, if not one of the best leaders in the country. And, Navy had a fantastic week, just beat the crap out of Memphis, 45-20. I didn't even see that coming. I thought it would be a close game. And, I think that they're, I wouldn't say favorites for the AAC right now, because there is still Houston, but I don't know. It's going to be hard for any team to beat Navy in the AAC right now. Their only loss, again, like Temple, is to a very good team, or to a very good Notre Dame team. So move on to number 19, Florida State. So I believe that Florida State is, Florida State's tough for me. Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the country. The offense plays good sometimes, and they do have a very good defense that hangs tough. But the Clemson loss doesn't look too bad on them, because I think that Clemson is the best team in the country right now. But I don't think that Georgia Tech loss is looking miserable right now, and I think that's going to end up hurting Florida State in the long run in the fight for maybe the fight to be in the top 15 to finish the season. So number 18, UCLA. UCLA is looking good right now. Like I said, I kept on saying I think Josh Rosen was going to get his inconsistencies out of the way the more and more the season moves on, and that's what he's doing. Obviously, I think he's still going to have off games, but I do still think that UCLA is very much alive in the Pac-12 battle, and even though a lot of people counted them out, I believe it was, they got whacked by Stanford, and a lot of people thought they were out after that, but I think they're still in. So move on to number 17, North Carolina. So there's many varying opinions on Carolina right now. They just beat Duke 66-31 last week. The passing game looked unbelievable. Not like anything I've seen out of North Carolina the last couple of years. Ryan Switzer looks like one of the best players in the ACC right now. Marquise Williams is looking like everything he was hyped up to be as a dual-threat quarterback. He threw the ball unbelievably well last week. Hit a lot of go routes that I didn't know he had the consistent. I wouldn't say the consistent arm strength, but the consistent accuracy deep to hit. I've never questioned his arm strength, but I've seen him miss a lot of go routes, a lot of out routes, just a lot of routes over 15 yards. And, I think North Carolina, the way they're playing right now, they could be a threat to Clemson. Obviously, they still got to work through the rest of their schedule, win the ACC Coastal. But actually, I don't know if they clinched already. I don't think they did. But, I think they're going to win the Coastal no problem if they haven't already. And, be really the only team in the Coastal that I think could put up a legitimately good fight to Clemson. Anyway, move on to number 16, Houston. Houston is a tough one for me right now. They played, I can't remember who they beat last week. It was 33-30, and it was a lot closer than it should have been. Houston, I still firmly believe that Greg Ward is one of the best starts outside of the Power 5. I think him and Tyler Matakevich might be the two biggest stars outside of the Power 5. Obviously that's a lot of names to go through, but I think that he can lead Houston to an undefeated season. I don't think that Houston has I don't think that any non-Power 5 team after Memphis losing has a chance to make the playoff. They kind of pretty much knocked him out of contention. But for the time being, I think that Houston is still the favorite to win. Is now the favorite to win the AAC. It's hard to it's hard to take them out of that role. Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a decent team, but yes, Houston should have beaten them by more at home. Seeing Houston play some close games like that kind of makes you worry when they run into Memphis. I believe it is this coming week. Yes. And then I do believe they still have to play Navy before the end of the season, which obviously looks like a very tough game for them right now. Yes, they do. Final game of the season. So the ACC or the AAC championship could actually come down to that last week for Houston and Navy. But like I said, for right now, they are the favorite. So move on to number 15, Michigan. So Michigan, I'd still say, is the best two-loss team in the country right now. You still look at their two losses. Utah's still looking all right. They're still afloat. Michigan State not looking good at all right now after that loss to Nebraska. Won't lie, but Michigan, I'd say you ask 95% of the population, they say they should have won that game, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. So they are where they are. So move on to number 14, Michigan State. Tough loss. You could blame it on the refs there, but you should have pulled away from a bad Nebraska team. I get that Lincoln can be a tough place to play sometimes, but I don't know. I figured it would come back to get Michigan State eventually. I didn't think it would be against a team like Nebraska. I thought they were going to make it to the Ohio State game undefeated, but I guess not. And they can still win the Big Ten. It'd be interesting to see them win out and beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten and see what happens. But that's a hard scenario to see right now. So move on to number 13, TCU. Tough game against Oklahoma State. Knocked Boykin's Heisman chances off, and that's really it for him. Oklahoma State's defense looked good. TCU, I've been saying the entire year, is not the same team on the road they are at home. If the game had been at home for them, then honestly I think they would have won. That's just like my own opinion. I think that TCU is still a very good team, a team you should not count out, especially since they do get Baylor at home. I think that going on the road to play OU could be very much the same result that it was against OSU. And not to take any credit away from Oklahoma State, especially really don't want to do that. But you know what? I think that this Baylor OU game is going to be very telling this weekend. And I think that TCU will finish out the year with a 2-loss record. All right, so move on to number 12, Utah. So they were able to beat Washington last week, 34-23, and while Utah hasn't been, they haven't been great in the last few weeks. Beating Washington on the road was big for them. Washington was the favorite after just destroying Arizona 49-3. Excuse me. And Utah's defense looked good. Travis Wilson, I think, is getting back on track a little bit. Obviously, his best season in college so far. Devontae Booker looked really good as well. And I don't know. Utah might still have a chance to go to make it to the college football playoff if they win out and win the Pac-12. We'll see. They still have some tough games left. They still do have to play UCLA, and if they do win the Pac-12 South, and they do have to go and play what will most likely be, if not for sure at this point, Stanford. So, move on to number 11, Florida. So, excuse me. I wouldn't say the loss to LSU takes really any credit away from them right now. They had to play. That was their first week with Treon Harris against LSU. Very close game. Might have won it if it was in the swamp, not in Death Valley. But, that's the way things go. So, they did lock up the SEC East, and they did look terrible against Vanderbilt. But, they hung on. They won. That happens sometimes. For me, Florida's not a top 10 team right now, and I think it would take a lot for them to make the college football playoff. Obviously, they're gonna have to win out, and I just don't see that happening. So move on to number 10, Oklahoma. So I think Oklahoma's playing as well as anyone in the country right now. They start their November to Remember slate in the Big 12 this coming weekend. Game day is headed there against Baylor. I think it's gonna be an extremely interesting game. It's gonna tell a lot about both teams. I think OU's the same team at home they are on the road. For me, I think it's more about the team that they're playing than where they're at for OU. Obviously they still have the fire lit under them after that loss to Texas. Sadly, I don't think they're going to be able to make the college football playoff this year. Even if they do win out, they might be deserving. But I think if there's any one-loss team that has a chance to make the playoff in the Big 12, it is OU. For multiple reasons. One, just because of the brand name. Two, because I think people are starting to realize how fluky that loss was to Texas. Just the worst weekend they played all year. Might have been their worst looking weekend since the Clemson Bowl game last year. So move on to number 9, LSU. I think that LSU is still a pretty good team. I think they're going to be a New Year's Bowl or New Year's Six Bowl team, whatever you call it. I still think they're a top 10 team. Alabama had almost the perfect game plan against them. They ran into an Alabama team that, honestly normally beats them now. They don't have the quarterback to throw for over 300 yards like they needed to. I did pick LSU to win that game, but, they fell short. It was a spirited effort by their defense. I think they hung tough for a little bit, but, they were just ousted. I wouldn't really say they were exposed, but there are teams or one-loss teams that look better than them right now. All right, so move on to number 8, Stanford. So Stanford right now is, I don't know. I wouldn't say they're hard to make out, but obviously they're definitely going to have to win out if they want to make the college football playoff. That Notre Dame-Stanford game is looking huge now. It's looking like an elimination game, a game that whoever wins is going to probably vault up into the college football playoff. And obviously Stanford, I think whether it's UCLA, Utah, or USC, they're going to have an immensely tough test in the Pac-12 championship. They did already beat USC. They did already beat UCLA. Both those teams do not show up the same each week. One USC team that you saw at the beginning of the season, the very beginning, that was just crushing teams, looking great, granted not great teams. Right before they played Stanford was a different team that when they play Stanford than when they lost to Washington, definitely when they lost to Washington. UCLA, Josh Rosen's improved since that Stanford game. I think he'd play better the second time around. Utah is just a team that Stanford hasn't seen yet that could definitely beat them. Has the ability to, has the defense that I think could stop at least somewhat stop Christian McCaffrey. But for right now, I think Stanford is clear, or far and away the best team in the Pac-12. And if they win out, I think they'll make the college football playoff. Anyway, move on to number 7, Iowa. So Iowa just keeps winning, keeps finding a way. Kind of a scare against Indiana last week, but they were able to escape with a win. And, yeah, I think Iowa's very deserving of top 7 ranking now. Obviously, the Nebraska game is going to look like a little bit of a tougher test now. See if they can actually stage off the upset alert there. But aside from that, I think they got a pretty clear route to finishing undefeated after the regular season. And who knows, they might be a threat to either Ohio State or Michigan State, whoever ends up winning that or whoever ends up winning that division. So move on to number 6, Oklahoma State. So even putting them at 6, I don't know. I'm hesitant to put Oklahoma State up high. It's just, I've seen this before from Oklahoma State. It's gone both ways. You go back to 2013 and they get the number 6 ranking after beating Baylor, and then they choke against OU. It's a lot of people are putting Oklahoma State in the college football playoff immediately. A lot of people are hesitant like me, and a lot of people are just giving the credit that I think they deserve. And for the time being, I'm going to give them the credit they deserve. But this is what you get from a slate like what the Big 12 scheduled it to be. Like I said, TCU is not the same team at home. They're on the road. They caught a hot Oklahoma State team and a team that's hard to beat at Boone Pickens Stadium. And I had that feeling in the back of my head or in the back of my mind, back of my stomach, whatever, that Oklahoma State was going to win that game against TCU, and they did. I didn't see it was good. I didn't think they were going to win in that fashion, but I think it's big that Oklahoma State gets all 3 of those, I guess they got all 3 of the big games at home. I think it'll honestly come down to the OU game, and I think it's going to be a huge game. I honestly think that OU's going to win out before the Bedlam game, and I think OSU will too. And I think it's going to be an immensely huge Bedlam game this year. Fingers crossed, that'd be a great game to watch. But yeah. Anyway, move on to number 5, Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Sorry. Probably, I'd say right now has the best loss in the country, and they could be the only team right now to have really come anywhere close to dethroning Clemson, maybe outside of Louisville, and I think it was week 3, in a big scare for Clemson. Sorry, I'm sick and tired. Anyway, So Notre Dame, they've been looking good. They've played some close games, sure. But I do think that right now they look like one of the 5 best teams in the country. They were able to handle Pitt all the way. It was the score was kind of close. It was 42-30, but Notre Dame did control it the entire way. A big game from Deshaun Kaiser, and offense and defense look like they're both. I don't know about the defense so much, but the offense at least looks like it's improving week by week. Anyway, move on to number 4, Baylor. So a little too close to Kansas State. I didn't even see that one coming. I thought they were going to whack Kansas State. It wasn't because of Stidham. He honestly played pretty good. Defense is a little bit concerning, but that's with every defense in the Big 12. Like I said, the same thing I've said for OU, OSU, and TCU. I think it really comes down to how it looks in the OU Baylor game this weekend. I think it'll say a lot about all 4 teams, especially coming up this coming weekend where Oklahoma State, or not this coming weekend, the following weekend where Oklahoma State does play Baylor. I think that Baylor manages to pull it out this weekend, then they're a clear-cut top. I'd say, I don't know, maybe top 3, top 2 team. I don't know. It's hard to figure it out with the top 4 right now. I think the top 4 is pretty set right now, but I think this OU Baylor. I can't overstate how huge this OU Baylor game is this weekend for the Big 12. But you know what? That's going to be with every game between the Big 4 from here on out. Anyway, move on to number 3, Alabama, and you know what? I'll just leave it at the fact that they looked great last weekend. Had a great game plan, and you know what? I think if they can survive Mississippi State this weekend, which I think they will, but it could be a tough test for them. I think it will be. They survived that. SEC championship game. They're going to go into this college football playoff the same way they did last year. One-loss team that might be the favorite for the title, even if they're not a 1 seed. All right, so move on to number 2, Ohio State, and the first time that Ohio State is dethroned from the first overall spot in my rankings. I said all year that Ohio State is, or until a team clearly looks better than Ohio State, clearly looks like the number 1 team in the country, then Ohio State will stay at number 1. And you know what? They don't look like the number 1 team in the country anymore, just clear far and away. I think that JT Barrett thing could be a bigger deal than a lot of people thought. Cardale Jones was able to lead them enough to beat Minnesota, but it was kind of close. I believe it was 28-14, and I think it might take a game or two for JT Barrett to get back in the swing of things. And who knows? It might cost them against Michigan State, Michigan, or if they do end up winning the division, which I think they will, Iowa. So move on to number 1, Clemson. And like I just explained, they do look like the best team in the country right now. They're getting better by each week, I think. They survived what was an extremely tough test, I think, from Florida State. Really spirited effort from Florida State, too, and Dalvin Cook. And, they were able to stage off the upset, and that's a huge thing for Clemson. They survived what I think is their last huge test of the regular season, and now I wouldn't say look forward to the ACC title game. Obviously, finish it out. Don't get upset by anyone. But I think they're on the right track to being the number 1 seed in the playoff right now. Interesting stat this weekend. I believe it was the last time Clemson started out 9-0 was 1981. They won the national title that year. And to me, they look like I wouldn't say the far and away title favorite right now because they're, like I said, the top 4, maybe in the top 7 teams. All have a legitimate shot at the national title, but yeah, I think right now that it's Clemson's for the taking. Anyway, yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is I think they're favorites far and away, not far and away. Like I said, sorry guys, sick and tired, need to get this video done with. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll come back with my prediction video tomorrow. And also, last thing I wanted to mention was Stadium Series Tour. Actually got my first weekend of filming done at the TCU Oklahoma State game. I was kind of high in the stands in the student section, so I'll do as good as I can to edit, make it look good. Try to get some good shots of it. Also got some good shots at campus or around campus during the weekend, and yeah, so you guys get a good look of what the atmosphere just in general was around game day, around the atmosphere, and then might cut in a clip or two here and there of just cool things that I saw this weekend, maybe that involved me too, around just the tailgates, maybe if they did catch a clip of the tailgate I was at, or maybe, some of the stuff post-game. It was rocking there. It really was it was a great game to be at. I think it was one of the best games of the year, and, it put Oklahoma State fans in a frenzy like I haven't seen since we were able to beat Baylor 2 years ago, 49-17. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to try to get that edited. I haven't even got my intro video edited and done yet. And obviously I need to get that done first. But I'm hoping that'll be done and posted by tomorrow. I'm really liking the look of the series. I think it's going to be really cool. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah.